Today's episode is about always being alert, training players that are always alert. And the reason I'm making this episode is because it is very prevalent in especially in U.S. soccer and other countries with lower levels of play. That we always ask ourselves, why is it that certain countries have players that think faster than us? So we might move faster. We might be as athletic. We might be, no, we're probably more athletic, stronger, more agile. But these other countries just do everything a step ahead, two steps ahead. And we wonder, what is it that is enabling this? And obviously, this is not something that we intentionally do. This is something that we know is important, but there are some things that we do in our trainings here in the U.S. that enable the type of reactionary responses instead of the anticipation responses that we want. Look, in the real game, you need to be reading plays constantly, even when you're not directly involved in a play. So you might be a few meters away, a few yards away, 10, 20 yards away, but you still need to actively be involved in the game. And we don't train our players to think like this from a young age. And uh, when you're not directly involved in the play, it's things like repositioning yourself in a specific way so that you get to the next loose ball ahead of the other player, just things like that. I mean, we constantly say things like think ahead, stay focused, be alert, but that doesn't mean anything to a player. You have to be more, how can I say this? You have to be more detailed in explaining what you mean by think ahead, stay focused, be alert. It's almost like telling a player play simple. What does play simple mean? So one of the things that as a coach, I think we have to realize is that we can't just say things. If we want players to do things, the training sessions have to be set up so that they are forced and encouraged to do the things that we want them to do. The best way for kids to learn something is not through us necessarily talking, but it's them doing, because whenever they're doing an activity, they will constantly come across certain aspects of the game that we cannot talk enough to match that level of interaction that the player will have. So this is important that we set up our sessions like this. So in my opinion, each session should have at least one drill where players are punished for mentally switching off. This is, for me, this is something that I think about every single training, is that if we have drills where players are allowed to switch off and there's no consequence for switching off, then what is the incentive for a player to stay alert? So we say stay alert, but there's no consequence for it. So maybe I shouldn't say punish, but maybe I should say consequences for mentally switching off. Another thing in this, incorporating drills each session, at least one drill a session, is forcing players to observe multiple elements at once. And I'll just give an example that we do that doesn't enforce this. So whenever we have passing drills and players are passing back and forth, they are, and let's say it's a diamond drill where a player can get the ball, control it, pass it to the other player beside him, and switch off. And all he has to do is look at the ball. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to do anything else. He just has to look at the ball. But instead, what you can do is have the player control it and then pass it. And then while play is going with the ball, he is forced to look at another element. And an element can mean a teammate. It can mean uh, it can mean a ball, the movement of another ball, something, where the player has to pay attention to multiple things at once. So it's not just that ball, but it's another element of the game. Because in a real game, if you only pay attention to what's happening on the ball, you cannot make the best and most optimal decision uh, in terms of the next play. So we have to start training our players to not just focus on the ball, but we also have to force players to pay attention to other elements in addition to the ball, even when the ball is not around them. So oftentimes we have players with the ball and they have to focus on multiple elements, but we need to enforce that players always, and I'm talking about having a drill where they always have to focus on multiple elements. And then we have to allow space for players to interpret and decide the best decision based off of these multiple elements that they are observing. So if we set up a drill where players know exactly what they have to do step by step every single moment of the drill, we do not allow players to interpret and improve on their decision making, because in soccer, in a real game, everything is it depends. There's never always do this or always do that. So we also have to allow space for players to interpret and decide based on what they see in front of them. So when we do these activities where they're always alert, we want to give some basic instructions, basic guidance, but we do, if we can, want to allow for some interpretation of what's happening, and then being able to make a decision, their own decision, even if it's just a slight decision. Not, it doesn't even have to be a big decision, but it's just that players are observing multiple elements and they have to make some type of decision. And again, it's drills that are always going on, always alert. So players cannot take a second off of a break. And then this goes back into what I'm going into now, is we're building players that react. So a play happens and then they react to the play, instead of before that play happens, what is everything that they're observing? And then they anticipate before that ball goes there. So that's thinking ahead. That's thinking ahead. So we have to create proactive players. So learning how to read the game. And this is why it's important that we allow space for players to interpret and make decisions based off of what they see, because they have to read the game. And again, this is nothing huge, but I would say do one drill every training where players cannot take a couple seconds switching off. Otherwise, they get punished, and they have to, at the same time, pay attention to multiple elements of the game. Many times when we do drills, if a player can do a drill successfully only looking at the ball, that's a problem. So when we do those diamond passing drills or those Y passing drills, and a player can look good while only looking at the ball the whole time, what that does is, one, you're only looking at one element of the game. Two, because you know exactly where the ball is going to go, you can switch off and you can estimate, okay, I can switch off, wait a few seconds. Okay, now the ball's about to come back to me. So and then or if you have a teammate behind you, your teammate will say, hey, the ball's about to come, pay attention. Things like that. And that's what we have to eliminate. So players do not feel the consequences of switching off. So this is what we have to pay special attention to. So one drill a session, I would say, if you can, and it can be at any part of the session. These can even be drills at the warm up time. They can be in the main phase of the session, but I would start to aim one drill where players cannot switch off. And just to go back on this, you can do a 4 versus 4 game and players can still switch off. Players switch off all the time. So again, one drill a session. And if you have any questions on this, I would love to explain more. That's it for this episode on EvoToca. Stay tuned.